With the blockbuster trade that went down today, sending Kyrie Irving from the Brooklyn Nets to the Dallas Mavericks, a lot of eyes have been on the NBA in terms of how the market will shake up ahead of this year's trade deadline with still 4 days to go. Where will Kevin Durant go? What will the Brooklyn Nets do now that they sort of lost their starting point guard pretty abruptly, given just 2 days ago he demanded a trade from the team? But now it seems like the Brooklyn Nets are talking to the Toronto Raptors about a subsequent deal to potentially shake up their roster. So I'll take a look at this report right now. Let's just jump straight into it. As per Ian Begley, who is a locked-in insider around the New York sports area, always has information regarding the Brooklyn Nets and New York Knicks. Members of the Nets front office have touched base with the Toronto Raptors about a subsequent deal. Doesn't seem like the Nets are finished retooling their roster given the imminent return of Kevin Durant. Now, this is very interesting. I'm going to put this off the bat. I have zero expectations. I'm not even diving into this potentially being a Kevin Durant trade. People have been asking me in my previous video. I'll address some of the comments made on the video we just dropped on the channel regarding how the Kyrie Irving trade negatively impacts the Raptors' ability to facilitate some moves out there on the open market. But people are asking, why couldn't we end up going after Kevin Durant? We definitely have the assets to compete with the Phoenix Suns, with the Pelicans and stuff. Yes, but it just doesn't make sense. Yes, we could outbid the Phoenix Suns. Yes, we could outbid the New Orleans Pelicans. But given our lack of depth right now, given just how the vibes on this team have sort of been this season, it doesn't make sense to acquire KD at this point. He wouldn't cheer up the locker room, I don't think, and we're not a good enough team to where if he's brought in, it makes sense to give up all this future draft capital, some of our key players right now, to acquire him. So that's why I'm saying it's not about Kevin Durant, and well, this report's not about KD, and why we probably shouldn't go after him. So Ben, who could we get? That's what you guys are asking. What do the Brooklyn Nets potentially have to offer? Well, the Nets have acquired 3 different first-round picks in their James Harden and Kyrie deals. They just acquired a 2029 first-round pick from the Dallas Mavericks. They last season acquired some Philadelphia 76ers picks. You know, a couple picks from that James Harden trade. So they have a bit of draft capital that they can now play with. And as this article indicates, they're trying to retool their roster around the return of Kevin Durant. And currently as constructed, the Nets aren't looking like a team that's going to have a big impact around, potentially making a deep playoff push. So what could the Nets potentially want? They want some win now guys that the Toronto Raptors definitely have in abundance. I mean, we currently have OG Anunoby, who's the big name in terms of a guy that could be dealt ahead of this trade deadline. Fred VanVleet's been in a bunch of rumors and reports going around the last few weeks. And now with the Orlando Magic trying to offer him a max contract this offseason, or at least a close to max deal, big bag. If the Raptors don't want to match that this summer, then he could potentially be on the move ahead of this year's deadline. Gary Trent Jr. is a dude that definitely can put up buckets in a hurry. Again, a free agent this offseason, so might not command that much value back to Toronto, but still a team like the Brooklyn Nets would certainly be interested in. And, if the Raptors really want to blow it up, Pascal Siakam could potentially be in a package. So the Nets, I'd imagine, are reaching out to the Toronto Raptors right now to get some win now guys back to Brooklyn. So what does this mean for the Toronto Raptors? We have another player that could potentially give us some pieces. Now, the first player I'll just discuss is OG Anunoby, because personally, I don't think the Nets really have the assets that get me excited as a Toronto Raptors fan in terms of giving up OG compared to teams like the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Suns, the Blazers, right? They all have some young pieces, some young prospects that could potentially help and better fit the timeline of the Toronto Raptors right now. So I don't see a package surrounding Nick Claxton, who, yes, is a pretty solid player. I mean, if you look at his stats this season, right, 13 points per game, 9 rebounds. He's a young guy, averages 2.6 blocks a night. Shoots 73% from the field. Not much of a shooter. He does all of his work inside the lane. Doesn't create many shots for himself, but is a guy that also Masai Ujiri's been linked to in the past. Just last season, you can see the date on this, February 6th, 2022. Is that yeah? So basically, almost exactly to the year yesterday or today. The Toronto Raptors were interested in Nick Claxton. There's a lot of talk about potentially a Norman Powell deal going down between Nick Claxton a couple of years ago. So the Raptors have been linked to Nick Claxton in years past, but I don't think that is a needle mover in terms of an OG Anunoby deal. But if the Raptors are looking to get off of Fred VanVleet, and all you guys keep calling Fred VanVleet my boyfriend or whatever because I keep backing the guy and supporting him on these podcasts, but if he were to be dealt, I think a reasonable return for a Fred VanVleet trade could be Nick Claxton coming back to the Toronto Raptors. As he's younger, he's long, he can play the center position, and kind of fits what the Toronto Raptors like to do. Long, athletic, wiry guys. So, you know, some of those draft picks that, again, are from the Sixers, the Mavericks, super late into the future, potentially a Nick Claxton, some salary filler coming back to the Toronto Raptors. I think that could be a reasonable deal for a package surrounding Fred VanVleet if we were to move on from him. I mean, Fred's averaging 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 35% from the three-point line. I mean, look at what the market was willing to give for Kyrie Irving, who's a guy that's also a free agent this summer. Sure, he's putting up better stats, is a better talent than a Fred VanVleet, but not nearly as reliable as a guy like Federico, right, in terms of just coming in, night out, being able to lead your team, and doing what you'd expect out of the point guard position. So a Claxton and picks deal for Fred VanVleet, you know, that sort of framework is something that I wouldn't be shocked if I see rumors for that start percolating, or even a deal potentially go down in the coming days, especially if other packages end up happening, right? I don't imagine OG would be in a deal. Maybe Boucher goes back to the Nets. You know, if the Raptors are trying to tank, retool, get rid of some of their veteran guys, build more around Scottie, open up some more minutes for Precious Achiuwa, that could be a direction I see us going in, and then potentially flipping OG Anunoby to another team. Again, I'm of the opinion I don't think the star boy Gary Trent Jr. will end up being dealt, given all the reports that his open market value is like a first round, a protected first round pick, or even a couple of cheap second round picks. So, you know, Gary Trent Jr. I imagine is going to stay. I'll briefly touch on Pascal Siakam. I don't think he's going to get dealt. A lot of Michael Grange said it would have to be an insane haul. The Nets don't really have that unless they're going to give us Kevin Durant. It doesn't make sense to pick up Kevin Durant if we're giving away Pascal Siakam. So that's my take there. Also, a couple things on how the Kyrie Irving deal. I'll respond to a few of the comments in the comment section, but Kyrie Irving, right, is a guy that he went to the Dallas Mavericks, and a lot of teams are now speculating on Kevin Durant potentially being an open value. I explained all this in the video yesterday, but I wanted to second address it, right? And if KD doesn't get traded ahead of this year's trade deadline, which it doesn't seem like it will actually happen. It doesn't seem like he will actually be moved because the Nets are, quote, trying to retool around Kevin Durant right now. I think they're going to potentially have to trade him in the off season. That's their sort of plan, and teams likely could hold some of their assets, some of their draft picks that could end up going to Toronto to hopefully make a deal for KD this summer. So that's my whole take. Check out that whole video if you want the full argument on it there. I think it's more holds up greater given the fact that they're trying to retool around KD right now. But if you want to bet on everything surrounding this Toronto Raptors team, definitely check out the Cool Bet Sportsbook. Their sportsbook regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada, and you can bet on every single Toronto Raptors game, NBA game, or any sport really in general, right? They have bets regarding LeBron James's setting the NBA record in points, right? They have prop bets for tonight's game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Really anything you're interested in. If you are interested in sports betting, use the link down below. It supports us big time, and Cool Bet's been really good to the channel, so I appreciate those guys over there. But you guys are the best to make it this far. I'm signing out. Cheers.